Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Molly Freeman, and I am one of two representatives from J Street's large and fast-growing grassroots base to sit on the National Board of Directors. I am also here this afternoon representing the San Francisco Bay Area Local.
Hello, I'm Logan Bayroff, a junior at the University of Pennsylvania, co-founder of J Street U Penn, and the president of J Street U's National Student Board.
"2012 is a year of choice in the United States. As Americans, we will be setting the direction for the country by choosing our elected representatives in what is turning out to be a polarized election in which Israel is being increasingly used as a political football. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, we continue to watch changes in the region, waiting to see what governments and leaders emerge in Egypt and beyond, and watching to see how the disaster in Syria will be resolved. And in Israel, too, she is faced with strategic challenges and historic decisions about its own future. The land it will control, the nature of its democracy, and the possibility of a two-state solution.
In the coming year, we at J Street will define the choices that confront Israel's friends in America, and specifically address the question, what does it mean to be pro-Israel? We are doing this with our campaign, The Future of Pro-Israel. As we look to establish what the future of pro-Israel looks like in this country, we know that we have to clarify the choice between a vision of pro-Israel rooted in simply accepting the direction that Israel is going, and a vision of pro-Israel which advocates a new direction, rooted in a realistic assessment of Israel's strategic challenges, and based on the values that have kept the Jewish people strong for millennia.
With this in mind, it is our honor this afternoon to present you with a program in which we will explore, define, and discuss what it means to be the future of pro-Israel to different people engaged in the conversation about Israel. From rabbi and scholar Daniel Hartman, to editor and journalist Joan Eisner, to leaders engaged in our movement here and across the world. Our first speaker of this afternoon to discuss this is Rabbi Daniel Hartman. As a leading voice on the critical need for a two-state solution, Rabbi Hartman can be a surprise to some. We've been too well trained to expect that the aspiration for a negotiated peace divides us along our lines of affiliation. But it's that very surprise that I find inspiring. If we're going to achieve a two-state solution, we're going to have to be surprising, creative, and unexpected. Rabbi Hartman has spent his life addressing the need to look beyond expectations and conventional wisdom. As president of the Shalom Hartman Institute and director of the Engaging Israel Project, and further as the author of The Boundaries of Judaism and co-editor of Judaism and the Challenges of Modern Life, Rabbi Hartman calls on Israeli and diaspora Jews to grapple honestly with the moral and religious necessity for a genuine peace, teaching us to look beyond what is to what can be. I am so pleased to be able to introduce him to you now, Rabbi Daniel Hartman.
Good afternoon. God spoke to Moses saying, "Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, you shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." With that statement, our tradition tried to create something that ought to be at the foundation of all of our denominations. Doesn't matter whether you're Orthodox, Conservative, Reform, Reconstructionist, Renewal, Post-denominational, Secular. I think I got everyone. Doesn't matter. To be a Jew at its core means to continuously aspire to that which you will never achieve. It's not about feeling guilty. It's not about being frozen and saying, "Ugh, I'm never going to be good enough." It's not about feeling engulfed in a notion of original sin. It's about saying, God is not only one, God is radically other, but you have to spend your life trying to get close. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. Aspirational Judaism is the core denomination of Jewish life. It's a denomination in which mediocrity in Judaism is a contradiction in terms. It's a denomination in which you wake up in the morning and ask yourself, how could I build something better than yesterday? And how could tomorrow be better than today? What values, what ideals, what principles have to define me as a Jew? I aspire to be an aspirational Jew. I am an aspirational Zionist. The essence of aspirational Zionism is no different than aspirational Judaism. It asks, how do I get up in the morning and make sure that today is better than yesterday? And ask myself the question, what do I have to do tomorrow? I love living in Israel. I love Israel. I find it an honor to live there, to raise my children there, and now also to raise my grandchild there. It's not always easy. My family, like most Israelis, have paid a very, very heavy price for living in Israel and for loving Israel. The rabbinic tradition teaches us that one of the great tragedies of life is that everything of value, any great value or blessing, always comes with hardship. And Israel is no different. We've all paid a price. But I could choose or think of no other place that I would rather live and raise my family. But my love of Israel is not exhausted only by what it is. And I love it for what it is. We're soon going to have Pesach. We're a people who learn how to sing Dayenu. We sing Dayenu, but there's a little catch to the song Dayenu. It's a little contradiction. If we were really serious about the song, it would have only one line. Right? It's like, we're happy, but I want a little more. Dayenu and Dayenu and Dayenu and Dayenu, and it becomes quite a long song. I love Israel for what it is, and I'm aware of all the difficulties, its greatness and its failures, and I love it all. But my deep love of Israel is not merely exhausted by what Israel is and what it has achieved, but my deepest love is about what it can be, and asking myself, what values and ideals have to define a Jewish homeland? And what do I have to do to help make that a reality? As you all know, we, our generation, we're the first Jews of choice. We're the first ones who don't have to be Jewish. We don't. There's nothing forcing us to be Jewish. We have a real crisis, and that is that the outside world doesn't hate us enough. And it's difficult, because if they don't hate us enough, they don't serve as a safety net ensuring that I stay inside. They don't remind me of who I am if I don't want to be who I am. As Jews of choice, we know that a Judaism of mediocrity is not merely a tragedy, but a Judaism of mediocrity is a catastrophe and a death sentence. A Judaism which is not compelling is not going to actualize and activate the choice of Jews to stand up and say, I want to be a Jew. An Israel of mediocrity is no different. I believe that Israel is an essential, critical, important part of building a meaningful Jewish life for Jews in Israel and for Jews around the world. But I can't just declare it, demand it, and go home. I have to earn it. Just as Judaism must earn the choosing of the Jews, so must the future of loving Israel earn that love. And that's much more difficult. Now, how do we do that? We need to learn to develop a new conversation around Israel. Not necessarily we in this room, and we outside of this room. A conversation in which Jewish values and Jewish ideals defines us and challenges us to ask not merely what we criticize, but what do we want to build? Not merely what's wrong with them, but how do I take responsibility? We need to develop a nuanced language of values, which looks at the complexity of Israel and asks, how do we build a homeland for the Jewish people in a real world, in a difficult, crappy neighborhood? What do we do? How do we maintain our aspirations? What do we stand for? I don't have the time, even though I'd love to, speak at great length and model what this type of value conversation may look like. But I'd like to just very briefly, let's take one of the more difficult ones. One that is so essential to Judaism and so essential to Israel, and which needs to be nuanced if we're going to be lovers of Israel. Because if your values aren't nuanced, you'll sort of drown in criticism all the time. And you'll create us and them, and you'll sit down together and speak about us who get it and they who don't get it. An essential part of Israel and Zionism and sovereignty is power. You can't be a sovereign people without power. Now, how do we Jews think about power? On the one hand, power is an essential feature of what it means to be a human being. When God creates human beings and says, you rule the world and master it, you be the demigods, in essence replacing me. In Genesis, God creates God's replacement and says, it's your world. Rule it and master it, and with that, God gives us the blessing and the responsibility of power. A power which we must use to rule this world. A power which we must use to be able to institute tikkun olam. But also a power which we must use in order to live. In our tradition, protecting oneself is not amoral, is not immoral. Protecting oneself is one of the highest moral responsibilities that one has. We don't love human beings in general and despise ourselves. And I know it doesn't play that well in a movie. It's much nicer being the heroic one who dies for others. It's a great ending. It's the movie that you remember. But let me just do a little exercise for one moment and see if you're like most other groups in our community. Let's take the greatest dyer in Jewish history for a moment. It was the person who led the revolt in Masada. By a show of hands, and don't worry, it's not a test, who remembers the person who was played by Peter Strauss in the movie? What's his name? The greatest dyer in Jewish history. Look around for a moment, ladies and gentlemen. How do you think he feels right now? Elazar ben Yair. None of you even know his name, or some of you. Most do not. Because in our tradition, we have an obligation to live, v'chai b'hem. To live is a Jewish value. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love of others starts with love of self. Self-defense is a moral obligation. And so we embrace power. And we take a trip up Masada. We might sweat a little bit. But when we say never again, we don't simply say that Masada will never fall again. We say that's not our path. We choose to live. And as a sovereign people, sometimes we have to fight. But the thing about power is that it's essential to being and fulfilling our human destiny. But power is also never an end unto itself. We yearn for a day when we won't have to use it. We struggle with the question of how you use it justly. We ask, what are its limits? And yes, we ask, at what moment should I choose death rather than using it? Not as a theoretical exercise, but as a question that I ask myself, and a question that I ask my son to ask himself. Not in theory. At what moment do you not shoot? At what moment do you take a chance? We need a very sophisticated, nuanced conversation, for example, about power, about a Jewish state, about democracy, about state and religion. Building a sovereign Jewish country requires of us nuance, requires of us a conversation where the purpose of that conversation is not to feel good about oneself. The purpose of that conversation is to try to actualize these values in our lives. It's to be part of the solution. It's not to disenfranchise. It's not to disengage. But it's a conversation that will unite Jews worldwide in building a new Jewish country. In aspirational Zionism. Now, aspirational Judaism is relatively easy. It's easy because it's up to us. Who do you want to be? Have you had enough with mediocrity? What type of Judaism do you want to have? How do we build a community with a wide enough bandwidth to even hear Jewish values? A wide enough bandwidth to learn Jewish values? A wide enough bandwidth in which we build institutions that are meaningful and powerful and compelling? It's up to us. We could do anything we want in aspirational Judaism. Our problem is not a poverty of resources, it's a poverty of vision. We could do it if we want to. Aspirational Zionism, however, is much more complicated for two key reasons. The first is that unlike aspirational Judaism, in aspirational Zionism, it's not only up to us. There's somebody else. And one of the essential features of Israel and of loving Israel is to recognize that one of my values is to live in the real world. Part of what Zionism means, part of what Israel has done, is it has brought us back into the world. It has brought us back into realpolitik. It's brought us back into politics, and I want to stay there. But to build the Israel that I yearn for, the Israel that I dream about, it's not only up to me. Now, there's a lot of things that I have to do, and I will never be quiet. I will never be silent as long as there's something that I have to do, but I know that it's not only up to me. There's another side who also has to be aspirational. And it's also difficult because the environment of fear, in an environment of war, it's sometimes difficult to be aspirational. I remember every third weekend welcoming my son home. And he spent 3 years on checkpoints in the West Bank. And he had 5 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. That's 5 seconds. He had 5 seconds in which he had to figure out if the person coming to him was overdressed because they were overdressed, or whether they were overdressed because they wanted to kill him. He just had 5 seconds. And he wasn't 30, and he didn't have a doctorate in ethics. He's a little pisher. It's my son, he's 18 years old, 19 years old, and he's scared. And he wants to come home, and I want him to come home. It's difficult to be aspirational in our neighborhood. But because it's difficult, doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. That's our destiny. To be an aspirational Zionist is to be an aspirational Zionist in the Middle East, not in Washington, D.C. alone. That's where it counts. But it's difficult. And I need you to forgive us a little bit. We have to forgive each other a little bit. It's difficult. And it's not, as I said, always up to us. But there's another reason why aspirational Zionism is difficult. Because we don't agree on what those aspirations are. There's a lot of us who could love peace and love democracy and aspire for values, but we could disagree as to how that ought to be implemented in real life. Do we do a unilateral withdrawal from the West Bank? Do we not? What should the borders be? How much risk should we take for the sake of peace? Our debate it's nice and comfortable to think that our debate is between people who disagree with us fundamentally about our values. Very often, what makes aspirational Zionism so difficult is that we're disagreeing with people who fundamentally agree, but we disagree on the weight, on the balance, on how to implement them. Now, when it comes to aspirational Judaism, we also disagree, but that's relatively easy. Because we know how to build, while we're one people, we know how to build parallel Judaisms. Each one of us has our aspirations, we build our own shul. And if you don't agree with my value, build a different shul. I don't want you to come to my shul. I don't want to go to yours. Part of my identity is not going to yours. And that's okay. When it comes to Judaism, the space, the institution of synagogue life and denominations allows for difference in which if we disagree, you build your space. But when it comes to aspirational Zionism, what am I supposed to say? If you disagree with me, what? Build your own country? Israel is the shared enterprise of the Jewish people. We are stuck together. It's all of ours. Whether we like it or not, the people at the table aren't the people who agree with us. They're also the people who disagree. That's the essence of Zionism. It's about our decision not to be a shul only, but to be a people and to build something together. And I can't walk away from you. So how do I function? How do I allow my aspirations not just to be criticism, but to be a force for action, knowing fully well that I don't get to decide alone and I can't tell you to leave the table? I'd like to end by teaching a Kabbalistic principle taught in Lurianic Kabbalah. They asked a simple question. If God is the infinite, there's no room for anybody else. Infinite, you take up all the space. Lurianic Kabbalah had a brilliant idea. They said in the act of creation, God contracts God's self. The term is tzimtzum. God contracts God's self to make room for the world. If we're going to learn to love Israel together, we're all of us going to have to learn the art of tzimtzum. We're going to have to contract in order to live with the person who we disagree with. Contract our anger, contract our frustration, and yes, even contract our certainty. That's the hardest. And then contract our language to create a language in which we don't vilify, in which we don't insult, in which we allow somebody to be a carrier of values and to have a life of value, even if they don't necessarily agree with me. As a rabbi, I'd like to wish all of us, give all of us a bracha for one moment. My bracha to all of us is that in the spirit of our tradition, we'll have the courage to walk in the ways of God. You shall be holy. I yearn to be holy. And may all of us try to be holier tomorrow than we are today. Try to have a life slightly more valuable tomorrow than we had today. But I also want us to walk in the ways of God through tzimtzum. Let's contract. Let's learn how to share. Let's learn to love Israel and to love each other. And if we walk in the way of God, maybe, we will be able to build a deeper Jewish life and a greater Israel. And together, we will open a new chapter in Jewish history. Amen, and thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Cohen, and I am the president of J Street U at Johns Hopkins University. Salam Fayyad, Occupy Judaism, the Israeli social justice movement, inequality in pay for men and women in Jewish organizations, Marwan Barghouti. These are just some of the topics that Jane Eisner has written about recently in her role as the editor of the Jewish Daily Forward. In doing so, she explores and engages with some of the most important questions facing all of us, my generation especially, as we look to the future of Israel, its neighbors, and the role of the American Jewish community here. As a young woman, I am especially honored to introduce Jane Eisner tonight. 5 years ago in 10th grade, I read her book, Taking Back the Vote, which played a truly influential role in helping me to realize the necessity of political participation in enacting meaningful social change. She is one of the most important voices in our community, highlighting the distance that remains in ensuring that the American Jewish community is fair and equal and continues to raise up women's leadership. I'm honored to introduce Jane Eisner.
Thank you, Rachel. It is always a special privilege and a pleasure to hear Rabbi Hartman speak, and I thank him for his inspirational words of Torah and the Zionism that he embodies. I am here for a different reason. As head of a news organization that covers J Street and the many fascinating aspects of the contemporary American Jewish story, what I can contribute, I hope, are a few words not of text, but of context. That's what we journalists do. We tell stories, and we try to tell you what they mean.
The story happening here and around America is one of a Jewish community at a historic turning point. We face challenges that we might not have even imagined a generation or two ago. Challenges brought by our prosperity, our transition from a victimized minority to a group with extraordinary wealth, social status, and political power. And alongside the challenges that come with power, that is, first and foremost, to use it well, we have an unprecedented opportunity to bring our religious values and our faith commitment into the public square. So how will we do that? There's an old saying that good journalism is all about comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable. We Jews are, for the most part, the comfortable in 21st century America, and we need to recognize that, to absorb that, to allow it to shape our public behavior, our religious expression, and our pro-Israel advocacy. To illustrate how quickly this change has happened and how very American it is, I'll start with a brief story. Some years ago, I was named the London correspondent for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Before moving there, I went to look for a place to live. And since my visit was during Sukkot, a friend from our Chavra in Philadelphia put me in touch with an English family, and they offered to host me for a meal. So there I am, sitting at their table. I'm trying to sort of build a kind of connection with them. And so I thought I'd relay some news about our mutual friend. I told my English hosts about our Chavra's celebration of Simchat Torah the previous year. We brought the Torahs from the place where we had davened into Rittenhouse Square in Center City, Philadelphia. We danced out in the open and invited others to join in. Our mutual friend, who was a rabbi, took great delight in standing in the middle of the street leading to the square, his arms stretched out like this, stopping traffic for us to cross. So I joyfully recounted how wonderful it was to see our friend dressed in a white kittel, holding up cars and bicycles as if he was Moses crossing the Red Sea. All of this in public in the fanciest square in Philadelphia. Well, this did not go over as I had planned. Rather than delight in my story, my hosts were stunned silent. They were too polite to say what I realized afterwards they were probably thinking, which is that American Jews are crazy to be so demonstrative in public, to literally bring their religious zeal into the public square. And maybe we were then, but we no longer are now. Let's fast forward to October 2011. Another group of young engaged Jews wearing white kittles are leading a prayer service outdoors, but this time it's Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, and the place is not a small fancy square in Philadelphia, but a large encampment just steps from Wall Street, the center of finance in the richest country on the planet. Instead of a few dozen people dancing with Torahs, the Kol Nidre service associated with Occupy Wall Street last year drew hundreds of Jews, and probably some non-Jews, who repeated ancient prayers and beat their breasts in repentance under the bright lights of Lower Manhattan. This was an extraordinary assertion of power and identity, a sign of arrival for Jews, and, in a sense, a return to the historic place that religion has played in the public face of progressive activism in America. At the time, it seemed kind of new and gutsy, because for at least the past 3 decades, religious expression in the political sphere has been dominated by evangelical conservatives, a trend that we are seeing in dismaying detail in this current Republican presidential primary. But the right has not always had a monopoly on the expression of faith in the public square. In a sense, the Jews who chanted Kol Nidre we're upholding a tradition that began in the Revolutionary War, continued through the anti-slavery and civil rights movements, and even was manifested in the protest against the Vietnam War, a weaving together of faith tradition and progressive politics. There was a time not very long ago when rabbis like Abraham Joshua Heschel marched for civil rights, and Arthur Waskow created a Freedom Seder, and Catholic priests and nuns were instrumental in anti-war agitation, their actions propelled by a fervent religiosity and expressed in liturgical terms. Rooted in this progressive past, this new form of what some of us have been calling Occupy Judaism is very much a creature of the moment. It could not have come together without the extensive use of social media by savvy organizers who didn't need or seek the blessings of communal leadership. Like the social justice protests that swept Israel last year, it is bottom-up, not top-down, in both its political and its religious character. And to be successful and sustainable, this style of activism requires more than just a motivation for change. It's not just that the organizers of Occupy Judaism didn't depend on a hechsher from the Jewish establishment. They were knowledgeable enough and skilled enough to conduct a service on their own. This, I think, is an important point. If we are, as Jews, going to bring about a new relationship of faith in the public square, we have to know what our faith tradition believes and what it asks of us. The foundation for this new relationship can't be built on some squishy iteration of Tikkun Olam or other sorts of bland universal sentiments. If we're going to be more public Jews, we have to know what Judaism requires of us. And similarly, if you're going to be effective advocates for Israel, you have to be informed, learn more, visit, debate, engage. We also have to recognize that a religious tradition as old and as rich as ours emits several and sometimes competing strains of values and narratives. We can't be so arrogant as to say that the true Judaism is only a progressive one. An even greater challenge is to incorporate a realistic appraisal of who we are in this society into our public role. It seems to me that most of the establishment Jewish organizations operate under the assumptions of the last century, that Jews are vulnerable and this close to another disaster, and that the best people to lead those organizations are white men of a certain age and experience. I understand where that comes from. Our history is littered with examples of Jews attaining great wealth and status. Think of Spain in the 14th century or Germany a century ago, only to have that privilege crumble under the oppressive weight of an Inquisition or a Holocaust. I understand the fear that good moments will evaporate in an instant. Hey, I'm a Jewish mother. Guilt and anxiety are my constant companions. But those episodes in history didn't happen in America, which I believe has a far more tolerant DNA, and despite our sometimes ugly past, has a far better chance of guaranteeing the rights of minorities than any other place on earth. Never mind the fact that Americans love us here. They really do. Robert Putnam, in his recent seminal work, Amazing Grace, How Religion Divides Us and Unites Us, asserts that we Jews are the most popular religious group in America, and he offers the data to back it up. This very fact, I know, does create a kind of cognitive dissonance with some Jews. I actually spoke to Putnam about this, and he told me that when he lectured at his own Reform synagogue just outside Boston about this topic, and here I'm quoting, he said, people said, "You're wrong, they do hate us." And he replied to them, "Best as I can tell, they don't." They don't. So as you chart the future of pro-Israel advocacy, I urge you to do that in the context of this new reality. We are a vulnerable people in many places in the world. The tragic events last week in Toulouse are just only the latest reminder. But right now, here in America, we are in a fundamentally different place, and we are a fundamentally different people. We should never forget that power is always a privilege, that it can corrupt those who wield it, and that it comes with its own sense of demands and responsibilities. As we become more assertive in the public square, we should also be mindful to support and maintain the constitutional separation of religion and state that I believe has enabled us to function as such a free religious minority and ethnic group here in this country. When I was researching an essay on Occupy Judaism last fall, I had a wonderful conversation with Alan Wolf, a political scientist at Boston College, and he offered an astute observation. By linking public prayer with protest, he told me, quote, "It says that the protest has an element of the sacred associated with it." Invoking holiness in the public square, implying that such work is divinely inspired, can make us uncomfortable because it can smack of the kind of arrogance and certainty that becomes dangerous and intolerant. But thinking of this as sacred work can also be viewed in another way. It can encourage humility. You can embrace a new, vibrant role for Jewish faith and progressive activism that is also respectful of the past and intent on upholding that legacy. For me, this balance is beautifully enunciated by Martin Luther King in his letter from a Birmingham jail, and I can't help but quote that in my closing. "We must come to see that human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts and persistent work of men willing to be co-workers with God." Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is John Rosoff, and I am the Senior Rabbi of Temple Israel of Hollywood in Los Angeles. I am the future of pro-Israel activism because I believe that progressive Zionism is the best assurance that Israel will remain secure, Jewish, and democratic. Gloria Steinem was right when she said that all politics is personal, and so before I share a bit about how my pro-Israel activism has shaped my life and rabbinate, I want to say a few words about my roots in Zionist and Jewish leadership. In the late 19th century, half my family left Ukraine for Canada and the United States, and the other half went to Palestine. Those who made Aliyah were religious Jews and arrived in Jerusalem in 1880. Along with Jeremy Ben-Ami's great-grandparents, my family, were among the original settlers of Petah Tikva when they moved there in 1882. My great-great-uncle was famous as Petah Tikva's first shomer, policeman, and as both Theodore Herzl's and Chaim Weizmann's bodyguard whenever they visited the land. And I had the good fortune of meeting him when I was 6 years old in 1956. Big man. Another cousin became the founding professor of the Department of Near Eastern Languages at the Hebrew University. translated the Quran and 1001 Nights to Hebrew. Yet another helped facilitate the Camp David Accords as a Knesset attorney, and a third is the sitting Speaker of the Knesset, though his politics and mine are obviously not alike. In Los Angeles, my uncles and aunts were top leaders of the United Jewish Appeal, the Jewish Federation, the American Jewish Committee, Brandeis Camp Institute, and the Jewish Centers Associations in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. I was tutored in classic mid-century Jewish liberalism and claim as my childhood rabbis two giants, Leonard Bierman and Richard Levy, who mentored me in civil disobedience during the civil rights and Vietnam eras. Taken together, all roads led me to serious engagement in Jewish religious, communal, and Zionist life. My passion for Israel was especially inspired in those heady years immediately after the 1967 Six Days War, and reflecting the sentiment of Yehuda Halevi, though my body is here b'katzei ma'arav, at the far ends of the West, libi b'mizrach, my heart lives in the East. I feel as at home there as I do here, and when I am not there, I yearn to be there and to be with her. My adult life has been in part a struggle to join my two central worlds as an American liberal Jew and an Ohev Am, the Ohev Medinat Yisrael. It is therefore as a progressive Reform Zionist that I have found my true and natural home. As such, I take the view that Jewish nationalism must envision our people's independence as a means of serving humanity as a whole, that we might fulfill Isaiah's vision to be an Or LaGoyim, a light to the nations. I believe that social justice must be applied to all the major issues confronting Israeli society, including Israeli Arab and Palestinian rights, minority rights, immigrant worker rights, women's rights, gay and lesbian rights, poverty, education, and justice. Israel becoming a just society in every way needs to be the end game if Israel is to live its own declaration of independence. It isn't enough for us here in the West to mouth the right words. We have to be prepared to put our money where our mouths are, to visit Israel often, to support those progressive forces there working towards these good, just, and decent ends, and for some of us to make Aliyah. Among my chief missions as an American rabbi has been to inspire and lead my congregation to embrace progressive Zionist values by introducing them to the land, peoples, religions, cultures, history, and politics of Israel and the Middle East. To that end, I have led many congregational missions to the Jewish state, established through the Los Angeles-Tel Aviv partnership, a relationship between my day school's sixth grade students and parents and the sixth grade students and parents of the Tzahala Elementary School in North Tel Aviv, raised funds in support of the Reform Movement's Israel Religious Action Center, the Israel Movement for Progressive Judaism, and the building of two Reform synagogues, one in Mevatzer Zion and the other in Ramat HaSharon. I serve on the advisory board of the Daniel Centers of Tel Aviv and as a national vice president of the Association of Reform Zionists of America, and I have sold millions of dollars of State of Israel bonds over many years. I have also supported the good work of Rabbis for Human Rights, B'Tselem, New Israel Fund, Shalom Achshav, and a new organization which many don't know about yet, but I hope you'll look it up online, called Chidush, working for the separation of church and state in Israel. I tell you of my personal involvements because just as we expect much of the Jewish state, we diaspora Jews have an obligation to give back to Israel not just our love and ideas, but of our time, expertise, and treasure, especially when it's hard to do so, when we feel frustrated, angry, and alienated by Israel's government's policies and direction. The particular organizations I support represent a vision of Israel that is Jewish, democratic, pluralistic, compassionate, and just. They and others like them need strong American Jewish support, just as we American Jews need Israel to embody the values we cherish. In a word, we need Israel, and Israel needs us. It's a relationship that must be intimate and mutual. The Talmud makes this point when it says, Yoter ha'egel rotze linok, para rotze lehanik. Even more than the calf needs to suck, the mother needs to suckle. Though my synagogue is located at the far ends of the West, I feel grateful that by and large my community has embraced my progressive Zionist vision. Even so, I have my share of members who don't share that vision and who I know I have irritated a little bit over the years. The challenge for me as their rabbi is to at once draw them close, provoke them, not alienate them, and comfort them. The key to doing so is to show them sincere respect for their vision, as different as it is from what I believe, even as I hope they respect mine, as different as it is from theirs. Over many years, I and many in my community have created and nurtured a safe and open space to talk about Israel and engage multiple perspectives and viewpoints. It's through this kind of robust dialogue that religious and community leaders can best support Israel. Even so, I've been attacked for my progressive Zionist activism. I was especially criticized when my synagogue hosted Jeremy Ben-Ami this past spring in dialogue with David Suissa, the president of the Los Angeles Jewish Journal, an equally passionate, articulate, and intelligent Israel advocate who incidentally is speaking at this conference after Jeremy invited him to do so when they appeared together at Temple Israel of Hollywood. I had already been tagged communally as a J Street rabbi for articles that I penned in support of J Street's vision and activism. And in this role, I know that I've been dismissed by many in the LA Jewish community as being beyond the pale of acceptable pro-Israel activism. I know, and you know, that we are not beyond the pale. Our pro-Israel, pro-peace positions represent, according to recent surveys, not only the majority in the American Jewish community, but also that of hundreds of thousands of Israelis. More importantly, progressive pro-Israel activism is the future because the alternative, which represents the status quo and the brutal occupation and submission of another people, is what most endangers Israel's integrity and existence and its future as a Jewish and democratic state. And so all I can say to all of us is, Chazak, Chazak, Venit, Chazek, may we be strong and together in all of our efforts strengthen one another. Amen.
My name is Hannah Weisfeld, and I'm the director of Yachad, which is, as you can probably tell from my accent, the British Jewish community's pro-Israel, pro-peace movement. I am the future of pro-Israel because through Yachad, I am giving voice to thousands of British Jews who want to speak out in support of Israel, speak out in support of ending the occupation, and speak out in support of creating a Palestinian state. The future of pro-Israel is a British Jewish community which is unafraid to say what it believes to be in Israel's best long-term interests. According to the last piece of polling of British Jewry, which was done about a year and a half ago now, and I think you'll be surprised by these statistics, 90% of British Jews believe that Israel is the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people, and 95% have been to Israel. We are an incredibly closely connected and passionate community, and to be closely connected and passionate means to be vocal and to speak up. And that's why, when on a university campus in the UK, Israel is demonized. It's accused of being a rogue and criminal state, undeserving beyond all other states to have a place in the family of nations. I, on behalf of Yachad, will go onto campus and I'll debate those opinions. And at the same time, when Himnuta, the JNF's company in Israel, evict Palestinians from their homes in Silwan in East Jerusalem, We are unafraid to galvanise thousands of British Jews to protest against those evictions, to tell the JNF in the UK that we believe those actions damage prospects for peace. The future of pro-Israel is a confident and articulate British Jewish community which is unafraid to defend what needs defending and also challenge what needs to be challenged. When you turn 16 in England, you take a set of, well, in the United Kingdom, you take a set of high school exams, or secondary school as we call it, and it's almost become a rite of passage that when you've completed those exams, you spend a month in Israel touring, having an Israel experience. So 50% of our 16-year-olds, just over, go to Israel and have that month in Israel seeing the sights. And of course, if you spend a month in Israel, you spend a significant amount of that time in Jerusalem. And if you can just picture in your heads, and I'm sure some of you have been to the place I'm going to describe, most Jerusalem experiences start in a neighborhood called Talpiot. And in Talpiot, there's a viewpoint called the Tayelet, where you can see the old city in front of you. And to your left, you can see pockets of Jewish West Jerusalem. And to your right, you can see neighborhoods of East Jerusalem, and you can see Abu Dis, which is behind the wall. So if you can imagine standing on that viewpoint, and of course, you look to the old city and you marvel at the role that Jerusalem plays for the Jewish people. But the future of pro-Israel is thousands of British 16-year-olds standing on that viewpoint, looking at the old city and being amazed at what role Jerusalem plays for the Jewish people and its centrality to Jewish life. And at the same time, noticing that on the tops of the Palestinian homes in the Palestinian neighborhoods, there are small black plastic water tanks. And those water tanks collect rainwater because in the neighborhoods of East Jerusalem, where Palestinians live, they don't have access to proper municipal services. And so they collect rainwater as a substitute. Because the future of pro-Israel is to care that 250,000 Palestinians live inside those neighborhoods without equal access to education, without the right to vote, without a passport. Our young people should be able to care deeply about Israel and at the same time care not that it just exists as a Jewish state, but care about its character as a Jewish and democratic state. This summer, with Ira Mim, who I know are one of the conference partners and are here, will be taking over 50% of those 16-year-olds who take part in that experience to look at those black water tanks and to understand what they mean. That's the future of pro-Israel. We're 10 months old, and in those 10 months, we have taken hundreds of British Jews on tours to the occupied territories to get a sense of the conflict, to understand what the occupation looks like. Thousands of British Jews have participated in pro-Israel, pro-peace actions with us in support of a two-state solution and in support of democracy. Thousands of British Jews have participated in our educational events, hearing narratives that they have previously been excluded or completely ignored by the British Jewish community. The future of pro-Israel is tens of thousands of British Jews having those experiences with us. And just for the record, there are only about 280,000 of us, so tens of thousands is quite significant. I want to end by reading to you an email which I received just a couple of weeks ago from one of our supporters, a man called Bruce, who lives in London, and he wrote, "One of your greatest results is that people like me are able to stand up and say what we feel, express our love for Israel, and yet concern about some of its government's policies, knowing that Yachad stands behind us. The future of pro-Israel is thousands of people like Bruce who have found their lost voices. So when people look to the British Jewish community to understand what we think and feel about Israel, whether that's the Israeli government, Israeli civil society, the British government, or fellow Jews, they hear Bruce and those thousands of other people speaking up. And when they look to America, to Australia, to Europe, they hear all of our voices together that collectively, imbued with Jewish values, are speaking up in support of Israel, speaking up in support of ending the occupation, and speaking up in support of creating a Palestinian state. That is the future of pro-Israel."
I'm Elise Hogue, and as I was listening to the incredible, rich portfolio of all of the speakers that precede me, I had this tune going through my head. Anyone here remember Schoolhouse Rock? Any of those? Kept thinking, I'm just a Jew, yeah, I'm only a Jew. And the reason for that is that while my progressive political resume is long, when I stand here before you today, I stand here as a Jew. I've not been involved in progressive Jewish politics the way all the speakers that I follow have. And that's really important for what I have to say today. Anyone here ever see the movie Milk? About Harvey Milk in San Francisco? Really great, really powerful movie. For me, one of the most incredible scenes of that movie was when Sean Penn, playing Harvey Milk, gathered all of his core community together in a living room after a political loss and said to them, I figured out what our obstacle to victory is. I have it now. It's that until every American knows that they know one of us, we will never win. When I got the call from Corinne to be on this panel, sorry, Corinne, to be on this panel, my mind went to that scene. My mind went to that scene because I'm not out. I'm not out as a J Street supporter. So I went to the same place that that man in that scene went to when Harvey Milk handed him the telephone and said, call your parents now, tell them that you're out. I felt that same determination that now was the time to speak up, and that same terrified feeling that I could be rejected by those I most love. I'm not a shy person. I don't scare easily. I was the political advocacy and communications director for MoveOn.org for 6 years. I got in my fair share of fights. I have negotiated with bank CEOs for stronger environmental standards on their lending policies. I have stood my ground when right-wing radical activists have shouted down Congress people supporting the health care law at town halls in 2009. None of that stuff has scared me as much as standing here right today with you all right now, with the cameras rolling and the tweeters tweeting and saying, I'm out, I'm a J Street supporter. I come from a very conservative Jewish Texan family. I love my parents. They're wonderful people. I get my activism from them. My mom was the president of the JCC in Dallas. My dad was the president of the Federation. Some of my earliest memories of my mom being very involved in Operation Moses, airlifting Ethiopian Jews to save them from famine. My dad, in his role as the president of the Holocaust Museum in Dallas, has expanded the content of that museum from the persecution of Jews in World War II to include the persecution of African Americans in Texas in the Civil Rights Movement. I'm very proud of them. My parents, as well as most of our tight-knit Jewish community in Texas, are also AIPAC supporters. They do lobby days in Dallas, and they are that 7% that you hear about where Israel does decide their vote in elections. Because I love my parents, I have made sure to avoid this topic at all costs in my progressive activism. I have not wanted to go there to disappoint them, to make them sad, to make them want to reject me. But I love Israel. I love Israel with all my heart. The family lore has it that when I was a child and they took me, I didn't sleep for 2 weeks straight because I was so invigorated by my surroundings, and I didn't want to miss a single thing. I love Israel the way you can when you're 16 and you're free from your parents' grasp for the first time because you're on the teen tour and you get to go out and experience things on your own. I fell in love with Israel when I fell in love for the first time with a boy in Israel, drinking Maccabi beers and dancing at the nightclubs in Tiberias. Anyone been there? You spin me right round, baby, right round. That was the tune that will always remind me of Israel and my first boyfriend. It will always take me back there. I remember being young and playing hide and seek in the old city inside the Dung Gate with my Israeli cousins and teaching them how to shout, come out, wherever you are, as we ran along the twisty turns in the stone walls. I remember watching my older cousins bargain in the shuk. It was a sport. I wanted to learn it. I wanted to be as exciting and passionate as my Israeli cousins. It was such a contrast to the safety of my strip mall existence back in Texas. I love Israel with everything I have. And because I love Israel, I can't not notice that the range is getting smaller. That when American teen tours go, they don't go to the shuk as much. They're not free to wander the Arab quarter. Many of them don't go to Bethlehem anymore. And the place that I used to go when I was in my mid-20s and went back to study ecology in the Galil at Mount Meron, the nightclub I liked to hang out with in Tel Aviv, where they played Grateful Dead tunes, that was bombed. That was bombed several years ago. It's no longer there. I can't help but notice that we're retracting, that we've taken the unprecedented step of trading one soldier for thousands of Palestinians, emboldening Hamas and undercutting Fatah. And I can't help but notice when I do venture into political terrain with my Israeli and my American family, that hope seems to be retreating and everybody seems to be hunkering down. And it is for this reason that I'm here today. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on this issue at all. Everybody who will speak here this weekend and this week will be more of an expert than me. And I have probably already belied my novice stature by some of the language I've chosen to use in this talk. It's part of what's kept me silent. That nuance, that sophistication that's required to avoid the political and rhetorical landmines that we don't even know we've hit until we step on them. That's what's kept me silent. But I can't be silent anymore because I understand that in order to secure the future of Israel so that my nieces can go back and create the kinds of memory, experience the magic of floating in the Dead Sea and the power of watching the sunrise over Masada, we cannot continue with the status quo. We have to open an honest conversation. And opening an honest conversation requires us to challenge the conventional wisdom that questioning in itself is heresy. And in order to achieve the questions and the open dialogue, we all need to go somewhere where we fear to tread. When we're in rooms like this, it's really easy to feel like we're the majority. But I know I'm not the only one who has to go home and get nervous and have my heart clutch when I have to have this conversation. But it's more important than ever to walk to the Seder table, to walk into the living rooms, to walk in the communities and say, I'm out, I'm proud, I support J Street, and I support an incredibly open conversation so we can secure a safe future for Israel. I am the future of pro-Israel, and I invite you to join me and come out wherever you are.
My name is Ethan Weiss, and I'm a senior at Occidental College in Los Angeles. In January and February of this year, as part of assemblies in Boston, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Chicago, and Minneapolis, 355 students came together to tell our stories of Israel, to hear those of other students, and to share those stories with elected officials and community leaders. We strategized together and we planned together. We grew and we strengthened our connections to each other, and in turn we grew and strengthened the foundations of the movement itself. These J Street Youth Student Assemblies were for me a defining moment this year. Rarely do students today have so great a say over the form of the conversation around Israel. So much of the discourse is dominated by outdated and counterproductive talking points we can neither call our own nor consider particularly useful. Yet with these assemblies and with J Street U, students actually shaped the program and told their stories as they wanted to. And as a result, the community leaders we hosted shared a few uncensored responses of their own, rather than sticking merely to the script. We are the future of pro-Israel because we are learning the strength of each of our stories in struggling to tell a common narrative and in taking action together.
And I'm Debbie Schlossberg, mother of two, social worker, and a local leader of J Street in central New Jersey. What you may not know about J Street leaders is that we have opinions. We have lots of them, and they get listened to. And that's actually how the Future of Pro-Israel campaign came about, through many, many conference calls and conversations with leaders across the country, talking about the upcoming challenges, both political and in the communities that we live in, and how we can turn those challenges into opportunities for education and action. In the past 3 months, since launching the Future of Pro-Israel campaign, all 44 locals have been collecting the stories of hundreds of longtime and new J Street supporters. We, the many hundreds of lay leaders at J Street, have done this in over 120 house meetings and programs in 31 cities across the country. We are the future of pro-Israel, because being part of the future isn't just for our very amazing young people, it's for all of us. We are the future of pro-Israel because we can all imagine the world as it should be and can all be a part of a movement that helps get us closer to making that vision a reality.
My name is Bruce Temkin, and I'm the future of pro-Israel.
I'm the future of pro-Israel.
I and we are the future of pro-Israel.
I'm the future of pro-Israel.
And I'm the future of pro-Israel.
And my name is Amy Lesberg, and I am the future of pro-Israel.
And I am the future of pro-Israel.
And I am the future of pro-Israel.
My name is Sherry Lifton, and I am the future of pro-Israel.
I am the future of pro-Israel because Israel's future depends on it being a free, democratic, Jewish state living in peace with its neighbors.
My name is Keenan, and I'm the future of pro-Israel because I'm deeply concerned about the future prosperity and security of the Jewish people in their homeland.
I'm the future of pro-Israel because I've been a strong advocate of a two-state solution.
I'm the future of pro-Israel because the Jewish values that I was brought up with forced me to struggle with what it means to be democratic, struggle with what it means to be Jewish.
And I'm the future of pro-Israel because
I was born there and I grew up there, and all of my family lives there.
Because I believe that a negotiated two-state solution that establishes a secure and democratic Israel side by side with a secure and democratic Palestine is the key.
I'm the future of pro-Israel.
Because I want the Jewish people to be on the right side of history.
I'm the future of pro-Israel because I've never felt closer to my Jewish identity and the Jewish people than I do right now at this very moment.
I'm the future of pro-Israel because if I'm not, many other voices will fill the void.
Pro-Israel has come to mean helping Israel achieve peace, not helping Israel retain land.
I feel such a deep passion for justice and for
there to be a vibrant democracy in Israel, and that is the future of Israel.
I want more than anything to be part of building an Israel that I can share with my children with pride. And to me, that means a democratic Israel that makes peace with its neighbors.
I think about all the challenges that Israel faces to its security, to its lasting hopes for peace, to its Jewish and democratic nature, and I think of all the reasons every day why it would be so much easier to close up shop, go home, and not worry about it. That's when I think about all the young people and the old people and the Jewish Americans and Jewish Israelis and people who have a lot of resources and people who have nothing. We're doing so much to try to advance a pro-peace, pro-Israel agenda.
To be truly pro-Israel, in my view, is to create support within this country, within the Jewish community, and particularly within Congress, support for the policies that President Obama has advocated.
I come from a long history of Zionists, and I guess for the future of my grandparents, 100 years ago, sitting around a table, praying and dreaming of the Jewish state, and for my grandchildren, for them to have a future of a state of Israel in existence.
I think it's very important for the definition of pro-Israel to involve a dialogue as opposed to one narrow view.
A discussion amongst everyone, young adults, the old generation, young people.
I see a future of secure Israel based upon two lands for two peoples.
Supporting Israel also means supporting human rights and supporting two states. I'm the future of pro-Israel because I'm not afraid to take action and to work for an Israel that I'm proud of.
We cannot delay any longer to change the course of history.
I'm the future of pro-Israel because when these essential values are threatened, I'm willing to stand up and fight for them out loud.
From synagogue to synagogue, congressional district to congressional district, house to house, person to person, we're going to make our voices heard.
I care about my Israeli friends too much to shut up or to give up. And that's why I organize with J Street. And that's why in this election year, I'm going to make sure that my elected representatives understand the future of pro-Israel too.
I am the future of pro-Israel because I care that Israel will have a future.
We are the future of pro-Israel.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, this is the part where we're gonna get like loud and noisy and rowdy. You ready? All right. My name is Corinne Luck, and I'm the Vice President at J Street for Campaigns. I am here representing a team of 14 amazing field and new media staff and hundreds of volunteer leaders and activists representing 37 states and over 55 cities across this country. It is a privilege and an honor to do so now, as it is every day in my work. All right, before we start, we're gonna get warmed up. Can I ask you to raise your hand or make some noise if this is your first J Street conference? Wow, that is amazing. Okay, how about, how many of us here are involved in a J Street local or a J Street U chapter back at home? Hand? Yes. Yeah, so many of us. Okay, one more. What about the Future of Pro-Israel campaign? How many of you either made a video or wrote a testimonial for the Future of Pro-Israel website? Anyone? Right, I have to tell you, it was so hard making the film you just saw. We had hundreds of videos and submissions that we received over the course of the past 8 weeks. So that really is just a slice of those. And if you haven't had a chance, go to futureofproisrael.com. I'll be saying that a lot this session, when you have a chance, and check it out, because this whole rest of this session, this campaign, it's about all of you and what we're gonna do together this summer. All right, well, so some of us are brand new to J Street, or this is the first conference. As we've seen, we come from many different backgrounds and experiences, but we're in the same room because we've all decided to take action for the sake of Israel's future. And we know, as Elise also pointed out, it hasn't always been easy to do so, right? We have to be honest about that. Many of us have believed in a two-state solution for a long time, but we've often found it hard to speak up. Sometimes we don't believe in our own power to affect change. Sometimes we faced such hostile pushback that it seems wiser to back down, right? There are those in this country who devote resources to maintaining the status quo when it comes to Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There are those who believe that the direction of our national policy and the content of our national conversation should be set by the very few and the very loud, by the same people and organizations who have always shaped the direction and set the parameters for acceptable conversation on this issue. They, like some observers and some politicians, are banking on it always being this way. But this campaign, the future of pro-Israel, is our rebuttal. Just look around you, all of us. We represent a rising tide of American Jewish opinion, a tide that is growing with strength and conviction, reflecting what has long been the opinion of our community's quiet majority. There are those in this election year who have chosen to make Israel their favored wedge issue, a political football tossed around as a weapon to damage candidates' campaigns without the least regard as to the impact on Israel itself or any concern for the actual values and opinions of the majority of American Jews. Well, this, the Future of Pro-Israel campaign, says to those who pander and peddle in the politics of fear and intimidation, you're wrong. Jewish and American public support for a two-state solution and the US role in achieving it is strong and long-standing. The Future of Pro-Israel campaign, however, is about no longer just yelling at our TV screens until we're red in the face. It's about taking the facts and our values to a wide an audience as possible, to politicians and to voters, to synagogues and town halls, to family and friends, and out into the streets. There are those that say that we at J Street represent a few people, or we don't care enough to stand up and be counted. Well, the Future of Pro-Israel campaign gives a voice to the many, many thousands of people who have already come to J Street because they care deeply about securing Israel's future and understand that the creation of a Palestinian state is integral to that. The Future of Pro-Israel campaign is our way of welcoming the many more who are coming to J Street today because they feel the danger of inaction, or because they no longer can accept the rhetoric in their communities and the way their values are being misrepresented to the world. The Future of Pro-Israel campaign is our way of welcoming all who understand the consequences of failing to establish a durable two-state solution in the very near future. It is our way of creating avenues of action so that together we can write a new history for Israel and its neighbors. We come together tonight from all over the country and the world with our varied experiences to share a vision of what it means to be the future of pro-Israel. And over the past 8 weeks, we've gathered the stories and the testimonials you posted on the Future of Pro-Israel website. We have watched every single video and read every single story. And when we launched this campaign with our local leaders, we made a commitment to you that by today, we would compile these individual contributions and combine them. So we have one community vision, one statement that represents the breadth and depth of this movement. And I've seen all our staff people have been handing them out. We did. So this is a collective vision made of all the things that you have said to us that you want to be in here, and I'm just going to read it out for you now. We are the future of pro-Israel. We come together as proud supporters of a two-state solution. We are Americans who believe in democracy and equality. We are Jews who believe that to seek peace is to pursue justice and ensure lasting security. We believe to our very core in Israel's right to exist as a Jewish homeland and a democracy that guarantees equality to all its citizens. We fight for an Israel whose people live in security with recognized borders, an Israel living in peace and prosperity alongside a Palestinian homeland where citizens can thrive and build their own country. We share in the vision of Israel as a homeland for the Jewish people and Palestine as a homeland for the Palestinian people, living side by side in peace and security. We are the future of pro-Israel. We believe in an Israel that is guided by its principles, its ethics, and its values as enshrined in its founding documents. We believe that Tikkun Olam is a part of building a Jewish homeland, not apart from it. We understand that this conflict ends with 2 winners or 2 losers. This cannot be a zero-sum game. We know that we cannot delay any longer. There will never be a better time or the right time. There is only less time. There is only now. That is why we call on the US government to invest all possible resources to help Israelis and Palestinians create a peaceful and secure future for them both, and we call out those opportunistic politicians who would jeopardize Israel's future for their own political ends. We are the future of pro-Israel. We have chosen to stand up for what is right and what is necessary. We care too much to be silent or to indulge in despair. We believe we serve Israel best when we create the space for an open conversation about its future in our community, amongst and across generations and denominations. And we will be tireless in our efforts. We will go from synagogue to synagogue, congressional district to congressional district, house to house, person to person, and we'll make our voices heard. We will take action and we will fight for our values in the name of our grandparents and for the sake of our grandchildren. We are the future of pro-Israel. We came here tonight to share this vision, your vision. These are literally your words. We came here tonight to share this vision of what it means to be the future of pro-Israel. But that's actually just one part of it, right? Because we know that vision without action cannot change the course of history. We can't simply wait for politicians and policymakers to lead the way. We have to lead ourselves. And we all know this, right? They're asking us to lead. So are you ready to learn about how we're going to do that together this election year? Yes. All right. All right, well, it turns out we're going to make history again by raising hands or making some noise. Raise your hands again if you're part of a J Street local or a J Street U chapter. Raise your hands. Keep them up, because if your hand isn't up, if you're not part of a local, or you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say that, it's not the union side, it's us, look and see whose hand is up. Find one of those people. Talk to them afterwards, because J Street locals and J Street U chapters are your election home this year for future pro-Israel activities. So the first thing, oh, you can put them down. You're good. You're following instructions. The first thing we'll be doing when we get back to our home cities is actually presenting this vision. It's a community vision we've created, and we're going to present it back to our own communities at home. During the week of May 6th, we're going to be holding future pro-Israel meetings and inviting our supporters, as well as institutional, communal, and political leaders to share our stories and vision for the future of pro-Israel. And we're going to organize ourselves into action teams so we can be ready for the rest of the year. All right, so week of May 6th, everyone now is going to need their little Google Calendar on their phones. All right, then wait for it. Just a few days later in New York City on May 15th, Jeremy Ben-Ami is going to be debating Bill Kristol. It's going to be doing that at Bnei Jeshurun Synagogue on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Some of you may have heard of it. Those of you who aren't in New York, don't despair. We'll be filming the event and putting out videos so you can use them at house meetings and move them and invite people so they can see these videos too. But if you're in the tri-state area, and that's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, I live in New York, so it's a bit myopic. come out to this event. This event literally defines the choice that Americans and the American Jewish community face this year when it comes to how we want to conduct our Israel politics. Right? So week of May 6th, May 15th, and that is just the beginning, because you're seeing it here. I keep hearing it from people, right? For the first time in this organization's 4 years, we have this amazing grassroots base and student base that can engage with the election at both the presidential and congressional level. So we're taking it to a whole new realm this year. This spring and summer, we'll be training and organizing leaders and activists in a range of issue education and voter engagement tactics, including phone banking, rapid response. We're going to go to town hall meetings. We're going to go and we're going to host candidate forums. We're hosting debate and convention watch parties. We're canvassing and we're getting out the vote. We're going to do all of these things together. And we're going to turn this vision statement, it's not just going to be a vision statement, it's going to be an educational tool so that each of you and the thousands and thousands of folks who couldn't be here today but are watching all around the country, so they can actually have the Israel conversation with members of their community, with our community, in a way that's rooted in shared values and goals. That's what this is about, right? Not the heated rhetoric of the election campaign season. We want more people to join us. We want more people to take action, and we want more people to be more informed about what is at stake this year at the voting booth and in our communities. This is our way of doing that. So that's a lot of stuff, right? You excited? All right, well, here's one thing you can do. We're going to also go a little technology focused now. If you want to be a part of this, get out your phone and text FPI, Future of Pro-Israel, FPI to 69866 right now. FPI to 69866. And we'll get in touch with you, and we'll be calling you, and we'll want you to get involved. And text messaging, you didn't know. All right, so now I'm like all the way in the summer and thinking about the spring, but I'm actually getting ahead of myself. Because you don't have to wait until the summer. You don't even have to wait until May 6th to be a part of this campaign and amplify the Future of Pro-Israel message. Because you're here, and on Tuesday, many of us that are here, about 800 of us, are going to go to Capitol Hill and ask our representatives to put the two-state solution back at the top of this country's foreign policy agenda. How many people here are going to come out on Tuesday? Yes, they got to hear us. So, we were thinking, we've done a few of these Hill Days before. How can we make our presence felt even more than last year? We're definitely going to have more people. But we want to have a little extra something. Well, other advocacy organizations do it, so why can't we, right? We're coming out. We are going to be out there. And so we have something for you. Our beautiful J Street staff is handing out T-shirts right now. You're all getting a T-shirt. I've wanted to say that for so long. You are going to put on these T-shirts. You're going to put them over your fancy clothes. I'm going to get one. I didn't try this first, so we'll see. All right. It's backwards. Is it backwards? No, it's the front. All right, this is the front. This is the back. We're going to put this over our fancy clothes, just like I did right now, and we're going to go up to the hill, and we're going to be out, and we're going to show them that we are the future of pro-Israel. These are your freebie T-shirts. They're just one size. They're outside. We're going to start selling these T-shirts in different sizes so you can fit one that's a bit more snug. But we're going to wear them. We're going to wear them on Tuesday, and we're going to wear them to candidate forums, and we're going to wear them to town halls. Feel free to put them on now if you feel like, oh, I see some people are. You're looking fabulous. Right? We're going to do this because we are a real community. We are a real movement. Today, we have come together around a shared vision and a shared commitment to action to change the course of history. We came together because we are the future of pro-Israel. Thank you.